She knew that she had cancer, and she didn't want her family to think she was sick, even though she was. Very sick. Breast cancer treatment can take a toll on anyone's body, but for Michelle Holland, it was more important that her family not worry about her. That was one reason she tackled Thanksgiving dinner for 20, never letting on for one moment how badly she felt. The other thing she insisted on having was the cold cap, because keeping her hair was another way to defy the appearance of being ill. In the end, she kept 75% of her hair and said she accepted help from her family and friends only to make them feel better. She's a self-proclaimed terrible patient and has absolutely no regrets on how she handled treatment because she wanted to be strong. You'll learn more about Michelle, what it takes to use the cold cap, why she's now in a career that will impact breast cancer detection, and also why she refused to ring the bell when her chemotherapy was over. Please subscribe to our show. It will help us reach others as we share ways that help people get through breast cancer, give caregivers hope and information, and bring a new awareness to the importance of mammograms. Let's talk about your breast. A different kind of podcast presented to you by The Rose, a breast center of excellence and a Texas treasure. You're going to hear frank discussions about tough topics, and you're going to learn why knowing about your breast could save your life. Michelle, thank you so much for being with us today. It's just a delight to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about being here and sharing my story.
Well, I could tell just listening to you talk for a few minutes, but the story of breast cancer is never one that's happy.
No.
So
But
tell us how did you find it, or was it found, or tell us about your experience.
Sure. So I started getting mammograms at age 40. Everybody should. And I got diagnosed when I was 46. I have no family history. It was a total surprise, but they found it every year I go, and so they found it right after COVID. And so I was diagnosed October 11th, 2021, stage 1 invasive ductal carcinoma, and was 46 years old.
Wow.
Yes.
We are seeing more and more young women, so
sure are.
It just speaks to the importance of getting that mammogram every year and
Yes.
not putting it off until you're 50, like some women think they can wait. But
they do, and they think, too, I've got friends that maybe don't get it because they're, at that age in your 40s, you're busy with your kids and you're running, going all over, and you're like, oh, I'll get it later. And it just doesn't happen, and you feel like you're doing the right thing because you're taking care of your family. But ultimately, you really need to take care of yourself as well because early detection is key.
Yeah. So now, what was your treatment like?
So I was diagnosed and then had surgery. I had a lumpectomy, and then I actually had a reduction and a lift. And then I had, they sent it off for biopsy, found out it was an aggressive form of cancer, and ended up having to have chemo. So I had chemo and then radiation. And actually my chemo, I had the TC chemo. I was supposed to have 4 rounds. I only ended up having 3 because I ended up getting a severe allergic reaction to the chemo on my 3rd round, which was kind of surprising. We didn't expect to get that. So I spent some time at MD Anderson. And but then I had radiation and went from there.
So this hasn't been that long.
It really hasn't.
When did you finish?
Took about 1.5 years almost. So I guess if I was diagnosed in 2021, it's probably been about 1.5 years that I've been out of it. Yeah.
So are you going back like every 6 months or?
Still go every 3 months.
Okay.
I go every 3 months. I'm on tamoxifen because my cancer was estrogen and progesterone fed, which really, I heard all sorts of rumors about tamoxifen is just horrible and all this, but I've actually had a good run with it. So
that's so encouraging because honestly, some women do not tolerate it very well.
Right,
so
right.
Everybody's different.
Everybody's different. I think one of the things that made a difference is I went to my oncologist and I'm like, man, I'm having hot flashes and all of this. She prescribed or told me to get on magnesium oxide, and that was a game changer for me with tamoxifen personally.
Yes, I've heard that.
So it made all the difference. I don't get the hot flashes. I don't get all the side effects. So I'm going to be on it for
A while.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
But it does make such a difference in reoccurrence. It's just almost a miracle.
It really is. It really is.
So the one area that you had that a lot of women don't even know about it, and that was the cold cap.
That was huge for me.
Tell us
Sure.
what it is, how it works,
Okay.
how you made sure you had it, because like I said, so many women don't even know it exists.
Right. I had a lady call me today asking me, a friend of a friend, asking me questions. And so cold capping is, it's a cap that you put on your head. It's 2 layers. It's plastic and water runs through it. And then it's another layer you pull over and you put it really tight on your head. And it freezes your scalp. I joke and say it's kind of like Elsa from Frozen. You have to defrost for an hour and a half after it's on. So it keeps the chemo from getting up into the hair follicles, and it reduces the amount of hair that you lost. So I was able to maintain over 70% of my hair, which was important to me because it made people not come up and be like, oh, I'm so, they know if you don't have hair, they know you're more than likely going through cancer of some form. And it made people not think I was sick.
Right.
Which was important.
And how you feel, how you look is part of that recovery
It is.
process. I mean, it just is.
It really is. And
now, what are some other tips? You said you have to defrost.
yeah, so you go in. So, just to use an example of the lady that called me today, she said, the hospital I'm going to, they're not really, they're like not really telling me much about it. So I really had to advocate for myself as well. And that's what I told her. I specifically use Paxman. And that's the type of cold cap. And I went to MD Anderson for my treatment and called Paxman. They walked me through everything. They got me all the supplies that I needed. Then I got with MD Anderson because they've trained somebody there to how to fit the cap and all of that.
And that's very important. It's
It
not
really
like
is.
you can just put on any cap, or it has to be fitted to you.
It has to be fitted to your head. And it's got to be a very tight fit so that it keeps it gets super cold. It's like the most intense brain freeze. It lasts for about 10 minutes, which set my phone and I'm like, okay, 10 minutes, it'll be okay. When you first get it on, it's a little shocking, but it was a game changer because it let me maintain my hair. But again, it's still in the stages where I think you really have to advocate for yourself. These hospitals, I mean, we are so lucky we live in Houston with the best treatments, the best hospitals, but they're there to treat the cancer. Hair is kind of an afterthought. So you really have to advocate for yourself on that.
One of our guests said she had worn her contacts the first time.
Oh, okay.
And she learned right away that that's not something you do because the cold will even your eyes will get dry and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Was it every time you had chemo you wore it?
Every time I had chemo. Okay. Yep. Every time I had chemo, I would go in and I'd have to get there early to get prepped. You have to wet your hair down. You have to put kind of like a conditioner in it, slip the cap on. There's a big unit that runs the water through and it regulates the temperature. And so I'd have to get all that set up. It'd have to run for a certain period of time, and then they could start the chemo. And then I would have to defrost. Like I said, I think it was about an hour and a half because it was literally that frozen, that cold. But it kept my hair.
It kept your hair.
Kept my hair.
And that was important.
And now they're doing some really great stuff, Paxman in particular, as far as get it covered by insurance. So I paid out of pocket for it. It probably cost around $2,200, I guess. But now they're really making some big strides to get it covered by insurance.
That is so encouraging.
It really is.
Because for some women, that would be a real deterrent. They wouldn't
Yeah,
move
because
forward
cancer's
with
expensive.
It is expensive. Yeah, there's so many other costs that you don't even think about.
You don't realize all the things. I mean, even I got treated here in the League City area, so I didn't have to pay for parking. But if you're going up to the med center, you're paying for parking every single day, every time you're up there.
Right.
And it adds up.
It does.
It really does.
So, Michelle,
Yes, ma'am.
What did you, when you first were told, what did you think? What were your emotions? How did you deal with it?
So I still get a little. I basically just I knew it. Once they found it, then I was like, I know it's going to be cancer. And I'm not a glass half empty kind of person at all. But I just...
When they said there's something here.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, man. But I just had to kind of like digest it and understand and go, okay, you know what? I got this. We live in the Texas Medical Center. We have the best treatments. I mentioned when I had a reaction to one of the chemos, the doctor at the hospital was the one who developed the chemo. I mean, it's huge to be able to be around such amazing thought leaders. But I guess I worried about my family. Just I didn't want them to think I was sick, or
But you were.
I was.
How did you tell them?
Just sat them down and told them, and it was okay, but I'm kind of always the strong one, and I didn't want anybody to feel sorry for me, so that was a little hard, and that's why the hair was so important, because I'm like, I don't want people to think that I'm sick, so I just told my family, but I told, we had 2 girls, we still do, at the time, and told them that, I'm okay, I'm not going to, nothing bad's going to happen, it's just going to be kind of a journey, and it was.
Had they been around anyone else that had cancer?
They had. My husband had cancer. He had chronic myeloid leukemia, and he's okay now, but it was different. He didn't have to have the surgery. He had oral chemo. He didn't lose his hair. It was still very much, not a fun experience. But so, yes. So
they knew this word.
Yes. And they were old enough.
How old were they?
So we have, I think my daughter was 19, and then our younger one was probably 14 at the time.
But still.
They were young, yeah. And it's scary. You hear breast cancer, and they... But that was my main thing. I'm like, I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be as positive as absolutely possible. And because I don't want them to worry. That was my biggest concern, is family worrying about me. So it was a journey.
How did they care for you?
They were great, but I'm a terrible patient. I had friends that would want to do meal trains and do all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, I got it. And so I really wasn't very good as far as letting people help me at all.
Looking back, do you wish you had done that more?
For me personally, no, because it made me be able to feel like I was still strong. And so, I had surgery, and then 2 weeks later, I hosted Thanksgiving for 20 plus people, and they all thought I was crazy, but that's what made me feel better. So I'm like, I'm strong, I can do this. And so as much normalcy as I could. I didn't want meal trains. I didn't want,
So who did you have to comfort during that time?
Probably my friends and family, because they worried.
Yeah.
We were super lucky. I have a great support system. And I think when I didn't let them help me, if I did, it was to make them feel good versus me. But it's kind of backwards. But
hey, if that's what worked for you.
Yeah. I didn't even ring the bell. When I got done with cancer, I was like, I'm not even ringing that bell. I am so out of here. I'm
not going to stop.
I don't want pictures. I don't want to ring the bell. I don't want to do any of that. I want to just be done. So, yes.
Yeah.
So it's a little different.
Well, I think that's important for our listeners to know. Everybody has a different response, and
everybody
handles it differently, just like anything that we go through. But
yeah, definitely.
This is one of the more challenging ones.
It is.
Any way you go.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but it was, it's still hard to talk about, but I try to talk as much as I can about it, because I think that it helps for people to, this podcast is amazing, because the more people that can hear things, there might be something that somebody says that really resonates with them, and they're like, oh, that makes sense, or, oh, I feel that same way.
Right.
And they can relate to.
So do you worry about your girls?
I do. Definitely do. But I'm excited because I got a job that I get to work for Siemens Healthineers, and I sell the first new mammogram machine to hit the market in over 10 years. It can detect a cancer that is the size of the tip of a pencil. So it makes me feel hopeful and positive that my girls will be able to be diagnosed, if they happen to have it, way earlier than I was, in a much earlier stage. I was still stage 1, but I mean, to be able to detect cancer at a size, a pencil tip, and to be able to work for a company that is on the cutting edge of this type of technology it's a privilege. I'm so excited because I have such a passion for it. So,
Did you do the genetic testing?
I did. No genetics for it, nothing.
You know, I think that's one of the most important messages we can put out there. You had no family history.
Nope.
No genetic issues that were that you could have known of. You were young.
Yep.
And the one thing you had going for you was you had that annual mammogram. Did you skip the 2020 one?
I did not.
You didn't?
I did not.
That is so good
that was a
to
big
hear.
year that a lot
Yeah.
of people skipped because everything was shut down. I did not skip that year. And I'm glad that I wasn't diagnosed in that year, because the women that were diagnosed that year, that was horrible. They didn't get to have anybody with them. They didn't get to have it. Just, I can't imagine going through that.
So who was with you when you were doing your chemo?
My husband, and then my best friend. She came. My husband couldn't make it to one of them, so she came.
What did I've heard so many different stories about when people are having their chemo and how whoever was with them helped that time to go by. Did you have any special things you did during that time? Or?
I downloaded shows on Netflix. So I'm trying to think what show it was. It was probably some mindless show that, I just would watch it. But it was a little bit hard because I did the cold capping, obviously, but then I also did the mitts.
Oh, that's right.
And the ice for your feet, so I couldn't swipe on my phone, so it made it a little difficult. But yeah, I kept busy doing that. And I think one of the biggest things is I kept busy and I kept moving. Like when I was going through chemo, there were days where you just didn't feel good, or even after surgery, whether I went walking. After surgery, again, I'm not the most compliant patient. I'm like, when can I go to the gym? And she's like, you cannot go to the gym. You can't drive. You can't go to the gym. But I would go to the gym anyways, and I'd sit on, I joke and lovingly call it the grandma bike. You just sit there and you just move your feet. But I was like, I had to do something to move. And I talked to this lady today that's going to be going through chemo, and I was like, my biggest piece of advice is, even when you feel bad, move your body. And it's so counterintuitive.
But Michelle, that's true in any situation. If you're depressed, get up and move.
Yep.
If, go down the list. Just moving your body can move your mind. And that is one of the things I think we've lost, that knowledge of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard. I mean, you have days where you are just like, I do not want to go. But you go, and then I don't think there's anybody that would tell you that they went and walked or worked out or did something and they felt bad after.
No.
That's
good advice.
Yeah. So I did that.
So do you have any friends, or even in your job now? You're a salesperson. You're selling this machine now. How could someone sit across the table from you and say, "Oh, I don't want that machine"? Do you share your stories?
I share
Do they
my
know?
story.
Okay.
Yep, I share my story, and I share my story to anybody that wants to hear it. I've done some stuff with UTMB. They have an event. I'm going to a luncheon tomorrow, and I try to stay active and share my story because it's so important for women to get their annual mammogram and to prioritize themselves. And I think that a lot of us are not super great with that. We prioritize everybody else, and we need to prioritize ourselves.
Yes.
But yeah, so no, I share my story when I'm selling the machine. And again, it's such a privilege. I'm so excited that I'm very new with them. So I'm just so excited to be able to do something I'm passionate about that can hopefully detect cancer earlier and go from there. So yeah, I'm excited and very excited.
You touched on this, but I just want to be sure. If you had been in a hospital or had a physician who did not recommend the cold cap, what would you have done?
You have to advocate for yourself. You have to know about it, that it's there. And then, same, like I said, they really weren't, they were like, oh, I don't know, it might not work. And they kind of brushed me off. And so I'm like, no, this is important to me. And so I called Paxman directly, and they are phenomenal. They've got a U.S. number. You can call them directly, and they will help you walk through the whole process. And so it's very
amazing.
Yeah. But you do have to kind of, and still even today, is like I said, the lady I talked to today, she's like, well, they kind of brushed me off. And I get it. Their job is to treat cancer, not save your hair. But it makes you feel so much more human when you have hair.
Yes, of course.
You know,
that's the thing that most women fear the most is losing their hair. I mean,
yeah.
You can appear to be okay,
right?
Even if you've had surgery or even if you're carrying your drains around.
Yep.
But you can't appear to be okay when all your hair is gone. That's just hard.
That's why it was so important to me to keep it. And like I said, the company they were amazing to work with. They really were.
That is good to know. This is you go directly to them.
So you can go to their
information.
You can go to paxmanscalpcooling.com, I believe, and you can go on there, click on patients. I just did it today again with this lady on the phone, and go through, and there's a number you can call, and they will walk you through the whole process. And like I said, when I did it, insurance didn't cover it, but I believe now that insurance does cover it at some of the larger facilities. So it's definitely a question to ask.
Right. It's like you were talking, they're still very new. This is a very new therapy.
Right.
And while the company has focused so much on education, they don't have that marketing.
They don't, because originally,
going on,
no, they don't. Originally, when I was getting back into the workforce, I mean, that's what I wanted to do. I'm like, I wanted to sell cold caps, and I was actually able to connect with the founder. They're based over in the UK. So they have a much larger footprint over there. And they didn't have any openings at the time. And then this job with Siemens Healthineers worked out, and I'm so excited. But there's just not the knowledge quite yet, I think. So, but they're rapidly expanding. It's there.
It's available.
And there's no guarantee. You still lose a lot of hair. It's hard. You take showers and you see the drain full of hair. Right. But for me personally, it was 100% worth it.
So you're not that far out, but
Nope.
do you consider yourself a survivor?
Yes.
And you paused.
Yes. No, I definitely do. I don't know. I try not to think about it. I try to just okay, I'm done with that. And that's off my list. I don't want to have to think about it. 'Cause it is. It's emotional. I tell you what, the first mammogram after going through all those treatments, it's like PTSD. You're like, oh my goodness, this is when I was first diagnosed. So, so I try just to not think about it. I go every 3 months. I do what I'm supposed to do, but I try to not think about it for me personally. So, so I am a survivor.
What other techniques do you use, though? I mean, that is the scariest time.
Probably that's why I tear up now. I don't know. I probably need to wrap my head around it more, because I feel like
here you've been there.
Yep.
It's got to feel like a nightmare stepping back into it. Oh my gosh, this could happen again.
Yep. And I try really hard to just realize we've got the best hospitals here, and if it did happen again, then okay, I can make it through. I tell you what, I mean, it tells you can do hard things.
Yeah.
And that some things are out of your control. And I'm a big control person. I like to be in control of everything. And cancer taught me that I can't. So, and I think my outreach, doing stuff with people and talking to people and telling my story helps me feel better.
Did you know you were a control freak before?
Yes, I did. I'm an outside of the box. If you tell me no, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to think of a way to make it a yes.
Yeah.
But cancer just really is like, okay, you know what? You're just going to have to come along for the ride. So,
that's a good way to put it, though.
To come along for the ride.
Yeah. I mean, what else can you do?
You can't. Yeah. And you're just glad that, if you've got a support system and that you have amazing facilities that,
And insurance. Which a lot of women we serve do not have that readily available to them. So
they don't, and there's those out-of-pocket costs. Like, for example, my daughter played volleyball, and they did a breast cancer fundraising event, and we actually gave the money to UTMB because there's things like a zip-up sports bra after surgery, or there's parking, or there's
the creams you may have to use.
Spray
right?
Aquaphor. There's all sorts of things, and that all adds up. And if you're having to get babysitters while you're going to radiation, or you're having to pay for gas to drive wherever, and there's a lot of costs that people don't realize they're associated with it. So the fundraiser, they gave it back to UTMB and help people. They give it out to people that need it for things like that. Amazon gift cards we did, and that helped.
So many things,
There really are. There really are.
Is there anything that you had wished you had known back when you went for that mammogram and you get that call? You had to go back for what, spot compressions or?
To go back. So I got the mammogram. Then I had to go back for the biopsy, which that was absolutely no fun. That just was not a fun experience, the biopsy. I don't know what I was thinking about it because, my husband had offered to go with me, and I'm like, no, I'm good. And
was it stereotactic or ultrasound?
Stereotactic.
Oh, those are not fun.
It was just not a fun experience, but I made it through it. And anything I wish I had known, probably just that I had to let go of whatever perceived control I thought I had and just go along for the ride. That, but as far as, I had great friends. I had friends that were going through it as well, so I reached out to them for any type of advice.
Same age?
Same age. Actually, my daughter's preschool class, there were 3 of us in the same preschool class right around the same time, that all different types of breast cancer, but we all were diagnosed. So it was nice in that we had people to talk to, and I had,
because the issues a 40-year-old has are so different than a woman in her 60s or 70s. I mean, children and all the other things.
Yeah. So they were young, and there's more. I think there's more and more young people that are being diagnosed with breast cancer,
and it's not a think it is actually true.
Yes, I believe that. Yeah.
It is. We've had some recent studies come out that are just so sobering because they have definitely seen an increase in breast cancers, in women 40 to 49.
Right.
And so more and more we're seeing those recommendations that had everyone so confused. Yes. Said, you don't really need it in your 40s.
Right.
More and more, the different organizations are saying, no, start at 40. That's just it.
100% agree with that. 100%. And then if you can catch it early, I mean, that can be game-changing.
Oh, yeah.
I was lucky to be able to catch mine at stage 1. And even at stage 1, I still had to have chemo and radiation and surgery and all of that. But it didn't spread to my lymph nodes, so that was good.
And that is it. So even in your position of selling these machines, do you find yourself having to educate whoever you're selling it to? I
mean, there's definitely education on the various mammogram machines that are out there, but the techs and the radiologists, no, I mean, they're up on.
What about people who really buy them, the administrators and that kind of thing? Come on, they have to approve the budget.
They have to approve the budget and everything. And honestly, I can't speak to that as much because I'm still so new with this position that I haven't been able to go through an entire sales cycle yet. So I'm very new. This is like week 3. So super new. But again, I'm just, so excited because it's super important. I've got 2 girls. I want the best machine out there to scan my daughters to see if they have it or not.
So it's 3D? Or
It's
is it
3D.
More than 3D?
It's 3D, and it has the widest angle. It's the 50% angle.
Okay.
So which can get a much better perspective on a very, very, very small cancerous tumor. So again, I'm going next week to go work with one of my coworkers to learn more about the different machines that we have. I went to MD Anderson last week and was able to work with some of them. They've got the machines up there. So very excited, but it just got FDA approved. So we are very early on.
New.
It's brand new.
Wow.
And the first one in over 10, 15 years.
I mean, we've had 3D that long, and most all of them are pretty much the same.
Right.
It's truly not, and with the exception of what you're talking about, it's not the machine as much as the radiologist, as much as the tech, as much as knowing what you're taking, and most of all, listening to the patient.
Yes, yes. And, you know, one of the benefits that I found as a patient that I liked about this machine was you don't have to hold your breath, which I don't know why. I worried about that as a patient. I get a mammogram. I'm like, is she going to remember to tell me to breathe? I don't know why. I can totally breathe on my own. But so there's a few things like that just make it more comfortable, and that, you know, there's some technology where the techs, you know, they're kind of like little gymnasts. They've got to get under and position and reach over and do all of that. It's more tech friendly as far as being able to move to where the techs aren't having to be as much of acrobats as they have to. So yes,
I'd want to see that.
Yeah. So we're excited. We're excited to be able to have it.
Michelle, do you have any final words, especially for young women?
Prioritize yourself. Take the time to get the mammogram. It's a game changer if you can detect it early. If you get diagnosed, social media is wonderful for information, but take it all with a grain of salt. There's lots of opinions. Everybody's cancer is different. Every treatment's different. And then just, it's a journey. And you're not in control, but you can make it through it.
And you're here to tell them they can.
I am. Yes. Oh. Yep. And be positive if you can, because you're going to make it through it and it'll be all right.
Right. That may be the only thing you can control.
That's 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for being with us
Thank you for having
today.
me.
This was so good.
I am so excited to be here.
Oh, and I tell you, I know our listeners heard things they haven't heard before. And so appreciate you being willing to share.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I think you all do amazing work.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk About Your Breasts. This podcast is produced by Speak Podcasting and brought to you by The Rose. Visit therose.org to learn more about our organization. Subscribe to our podcast, share episodes with friends, and join the conversation on social media using hashtag Let's Talk About Your Breasts. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. Consider supporting The Rose. Your gift can make the difference to a person in need. And remember, self-care is not selfish. It's essential.